Hello, this is Richard Wilson of the Family Office Club, and welcome to this investor mandate interview. I'm here today with Shane. Welcome, Shane.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
And so we want to do a quick interview here, just hearing about what type of investor you are, what you're looking for in general, kind of what your day-to-day perspective is on investing.
Sure. So, as you mentioned, Shane, I live in Calgary, Alberta, and I'm primarily a developer and commercial real estate investor focused on kind of infill, multifamily, service-based retail, and light industrial.
Great. And what geography would you be looking for deal flow in if we have a family that's maybe been sitting on a piece of real estate for a generation or two? They're not sure what to do with it, or maybe someone gets access to a distressed investment right now, opportunistic, and they could use your development expertise and kind of CoGP or joint venture on a project. What would that look like?
Sure. So at a very high level, some of the areas that we focus on are Alberta, Saskatchewan, and BC, kind of Western Canada. And I've also done business in Phoenix or in Arizona and Texas. So Houston, Dallas would be kind of the primary locations that I've got both relationships with and experience doing business.
Great. And then if someone is looking to co-GP with you or work with you, would you say that you're strongest on the development side? Or would you say that if someone else is a developer, you have LPs, if the deal is great and strong, that you're actually strongest on bringing some of that LP capital to the table in a deal, or is it pretty evenly balanced in your case?
Well, so when I do developments, I would say that would be, I would focus locally. So primarily in Alberta, maybe BC. If I'm going to say the US, I would be looking for local expertise and connections. And that's where I could likely bring in potential limited partners for equity.
Okay. And you only do ground up development, or by development, do you mean redevelopment many times, like more than half the time?
So when I'm focused on ground up development, that would be, once again, locally here in Alberta. But I look at value add opportunities, and a lot of that just plays into where I'm at in the market cycle. So for the past, call it 3 years, it's been difficult to find value add opportunities. And so if I could develop for less than I can buy, then I'm building below replacement cost. What I would say right now, I mean, not to be opportunistic, it's just the reality, right? Where we're at today. If things are challenging and liquidity is tight, then I'm looking at maybe more value add opportunities.
Okay. And I know many of our listeners are much more familiar with the US than Canada, but have the major US cities tracked US? I mean, are there just as many complaints by your brethren in Canada about low cap rates and hard to find good deals in Toronto and Vancouver? I mean, I know you guys have seen enormous growth from people moving into those cities. So I would guess it's a similar story there in most of those cities like Montreal, et cetera, right?
Yeah. I would say so the US, there's actually more velocity on deals because you've got 1031s. And so you typically see, even though it's compressed cap rates, there's still deal flow. Whereas in Canada, we don't have that. And so what generally happens is you've got a real consolidation of quality assets with very few very wealthy investors, like of size. And so that's why you're seeing a lot of Canadian investors, I think, go into the US.
Sure. Okay. And what's your $100,000 piece of advice if an investor is listening to this and they would like to save on fees? Maybe they're looking to partner with a developer. Like I've got a client looking to develop some real estate that they see in a part of New Jersey that they think is up and coming. Yeah. So going through that process is going to be a first time for them. Sure. Or just wasted time. A lot of investment teams waste a lot of time because it's their first few times going through a process. So what would be your biggest piece of advice you could leave investors with?
I was thinking about this question, and I guess the best pieces of advice that I could give as it surrounds $100,000, $1 million advice is it's actually something that I learned from Sam Zell. And that is, what is the critical assumption that that needs to be true for your development or your property to be successful? And so I'll give you a quick example. I was doing due diligence on about a half acre to do an infill multifamily development. So maybe similar to what your client is looking at. And I went out into the market, talked to property managers, banks, lenders, and really what I was trying to find out was what is going to kill me on this deal? What's going to really either make it a success or a failure? Because my costs are going to be what my costs are going to be. And really what I needed to figure out was, is there demand, and how much will they pay, and how big do the units need to be? And so once I was able to figure that out, I knew that my critical assumption was $2.10 a square foot on 1 bedrooms, 600 to 650, 2 bedrooms, 875 square feet, 2 bed, 2 bath, right? As soon as I figured that out, it was like, okay, now I could quickly go to the market and determine, am I going to be able to get rents that justify that? And at the end of the day, especially with what's going on right now, I determined that I couldn't in that location. So I needed to adjust.
Sure. It makes sense. And what about within your extended family or otherwise with yourself, besides what we've talked about already? Do you look for real estate tech investments? Do you do other type of angel investments? Is there any other side of your investor mandate you want to share here to source other types of deals from the club?
I think, I try to keep it really simple,
Sure.
LPGP, possibly CoGP. And I try not to get into complicated waterfalls and whatnot, because for the most part, if it's hard to explain, then generally it's hard for someone to understand. And so I just try to keep it pretty basic for the most part.
Sure. Okay, great. And what's the best way to get in touch with you if somebody wants to reach out?
You can go to my website, shane.com, and you can download my book or subscribe to my podcast. Those are kind of a few ways to probably get in touch with me.
Cool. Great. Yeah, thanks for being here today.
You bet. Thanks,
Take
Richard.
care, Shane.